Now, the next thing that we're going to do is implement our repository. So what we can say, I can open my project, go inside core, repositories, and here I'm going to create new item, which will be iRepository. So here I'm going to say iRepository, and that's gonna be interface. Okay, and create it. So removing the namespaces, make it public. Now this repository should be generic because it should work with all models. So I'm saying the entity, and here where the entity inherit class. So what I'm going to have? I'm going to have the entity get, which receives integer ID. I can have enumerable from the entity and say get all. After that, enumerable from the entity, and this will be find, and we're going to find it by expression that we're going to have from func, from the entity, and bool. So we can call this predicate. Okay, after that, what we can have? The entity from single or default to get it, and again, basically I receive the same expression here as well. What else we need inside our iRepository? Well, I need to have for sure add. So add from the entity. After that, I need to have void add range, which is enumerable from the entity, and here we'll place entities. After that, void remove from the entity, and void remove range, enumerable from my entity generic entities. Okay, so basically that's all you need for your repository. Now let's continue with implementing that. So I'll open Solution Explorer, go inside persistence, and here I'm going to add new folder which will be repositories. So here add repositories. Here I'm going to add implementation of this one, which will be repository. And now let's implement it. I'm going to say this will be public, and this will be generic, so from the entity, inherit the interface iRepository, and give the condition where entity inherit class. Okay, let's start implementing it. The first thing is I need to have my DB context. So protected read-only, I'm going to have some DB context, and this will be context. After that, I need constructor repository, which will receive DB context and just set them. Context is equal to context. Okay, the next thing. So what I'm going to have is public t entity from get integer ID. What's going to return that? Well, return context dot set from t entity dot find by ID. The next method is public enumerable from our generic and say get all. In that case, let's return context dot set. This will be set from the entity and dot to list. Okay, now to list async. You can implement async if you want as well. Basically, it's the same. Just you add here async, make this async task, set some awaiter, and say to list async. Okay, the next method is find. So public enumerable the entity, which will be find expression from func from the entity. Here should be func, which is coming from our system. Okay, the entity, and the next parameter is bool. Call it, as we said, predicate. Okay, here I'm going to say return. I'll copy this because I use it almost everywhere, and say context.set entity.where predicate. The next thing, public the entity from single or default. Again, expression from func, only func, my entity and the bool, and here we got predicate. Okay, return this one dot single or default from predicate. Okay, now let's continue with add public void add receiving the parameter. And how I'm going to add it? Well, context.set.add from entity. After that, going for add range, so void add range receiving the collection from my entity. Now we need to have only the entity, call it entities, context.set.add range entities. Okay, the next thing is remove, public void remove from the entity, and here we'll say dot remove entity. Okay, and the last one is remove range, so call it remove range. Here will be enumerable from the entity entities, and this will be remove range passing the parameter. Okay, good. So we have actually now implemented our generic repository. So let's start using it. I can go in my Solution Explorer, back to, let's say, core repositories, and here add more interfaces. Now I'll add them by class. So I author repository. Okay, which that's not going to be class, this will be public interface. What I want to have here, well, let's say return author, adding the namespace, and say get author with courses by integer ID. After that, well, let's say I might need course repository. So add new item, which is interface iCourse repository, making it public, and say enumerable from course, and after that, let's say get top selling courses, integer, and here we got count. Okay, the next thing could be, let's say we would like to implement other methods, so get courses with authors, and here I would say integer page index and integer page size. So here we're implementing paging as well. Okay, so far what is our benefit? Well, we got our generic repository, and now when we want to use it, for each model we can extract the logic in some iCourse repository. Why? Well, because now actually you don't need to, all your logic will be on the same place. If I have something to do with courses in database, I would add it here. And the thing that we miss is to inherit a repository, very important, from course, because this is my course repository. Okay, and after that I need to do the same thing for author as well. So here come and say author. Okay, good. So now we have our repositories implemented. The next thing that we need to do, actually we got their interfaces, we need now to implement them. So going to persistence repository, add new class, which will be author repository. Okay, and now let's do the implementation. Make it public class that inherit repository. So we're going to have already implemented their methods here as well. And I would say I author repository. Okay, so I need constructor author repository which receives my pull to context, and that inherit base from context. So inherit base will inherit what we got in our repository. After that, I need to get the DB context. So public pull to context, that will return context as pull to context. Okay, that's fine. And now let's implement the method. So what we had, public author, get author with courses, receive integer ID, and here we'll say return pull to context dot authors dot I will include C is going to C dot courses, for example. So I would like to add that relation with other table, C dot courses dot single or default where author is going to author.id is equal to id. Okay, well, so far so good. Now what's saying this? Use method. Okay, let's see it again. So we're saying authors dot we need to include something, and author is going to author dot courses. And now let's see the exception. Cannot convert one the expression to type string because it is not delegate type argument one the expression is not assignable to parameter string. So basically before we used to have one the, but now we got only strings. So what I can do is just take this and say that this will be courses. Or we can say using system.data.entity, and let's see it now. Author going to author.courses. And here now we got it. So basically you can leave it as string, only the name of the table, which is not a good idea, or make it as one. And we got implementation of authors repository. Now let's go for courses. So here, not view in object, right button, add new class, course repository. Okay, make it public and make this inherit repository from course, my model, and as well the interface iCourse repository. Going for again the constructor, which receive put to context and inherit base from context. Okay, and after that, public put to context returns context as this object. Okay, so now let's just implement the methods. I'm going to implement them from the interface, and now let's finish them. So get top selling courses. How we're going to say to get that? Well, return my context dot courses. First, I need to order them by descending, and here course is going to course dot full price, take by count, and say to list. Okay, and let's see what is wrong with this one. Cannot convert list from course to iCourse repository. So system.collection list.course return type iCourse repository. Okay, so basically the mistake that we did here is if I go here, I said enumerable from course repository. That's wrong, of course. I'm returning enumerable from course because I'm returning the model. And now here, we can change it, and that should be fine. The next model, so get courses with authors. Return put to context dot courses. Now for one expression, it's actually much better if you do them like that. It's much easier readable. And if you can try to stick to this, then that's a good coding practice. So make them like that instead on the same row. So put to context dot courses dot what I would like to include is a dot author. Okay, and here we need again to add our using. So we're going for using system.data.entity. After include, I would like to order them by name. So order by author is going to author.name. I'm going to apply paging, so skip page index -1, and after that this should be multiplied by page size. Of course, place brackets. Okay, so when we're applying paging, we need to have this skip and this take page size. If you're doing this on many places on your application, you can just extract these two and have it as extension method, for example, dot paging, and here provide the number of pages. Okay, and that's implementation. So we have completed our repositories. Generally, what I want to show you is that now all the logic, if I need to get top selling courses, I will always get it from here, and I'm not going to have this code on multiple places. So for example, in service 1, and after that in service, let's say 8, I need to get this courses. And I'm not going to write this one here, and after that write it here, and increase the chance of having bugs. So I'm writing it only on one place, and here in service one I would say course repository dot get top selling courses, and I'll get this from service 8 as well, so absolutely the same.